Good morning, everyone. This is the first Meet the Experts session of the final event of the Naturvation conference. My name is Dora Almasi. I'm a postdoc researcher at Central European University, and I'm here today with Laszlo Pinter from Central European University and Kes McCormick from Lund University. We are going to talk in the next 30 minutes about two major outputs of the Naturvation project. One is the Urban Nature Atlas, and the second is the massive open online course about nature-based solution. Both of these outputs were developed with the aim to explore the world of nature-based solutions. So we will be discussing in the next 30 minutes about these outputs, why they were developed, how they are working, what results they bring to us, and how we are envisaging to use them in the future. So we will be also collecting questions throughout the session. So I would like to ask you to please feel free to post your questions. We will be monitoring them and we will be selecting a few questions to answer at the end of the session. So first, I would like to turn to Laszlo, who is the professor and head of a department at the Environmental and Sciences and Policy Department of CU, to talk about the Urban Nature Atlas a little bit and tell the audience about why this tool has been developed, how it is working, and what results it brings to us. Thanks, Laszlo.
Thank you, Dora, and good morning, good day, good evening to everyone. So just a few words about the Atlas, which was, in fact, one of the first major outputs of the Naturvation project. And as you know, nature-based solutions is still a relatively new idea. So what we aim to do in the project is to take stock of just what types of nature-based solutions are out there, and get a fairly concrete idea of their types, their organization, the way they are managed, the way they are funded, the way they are run. And for that, we created what we called the Atlas. That is, at the moment, I think, the most comprehensive database of nature-based solutions. So we've given Naturvation's overall focus, we looked primarily at nature-based solutions in European cities. To be precise, we took a look at 1,000 cases of nature-based solutions in none less than 100 European cities. And for each of those nature-based solutions, we went into quite a bit of detail, trying to understand just, what is the type of nature-based solutions that is in these cities, who is running them, how are they managed, what are their impacts, how are they funded, what types of other outputs, publications are associated with them. And so in the Atlas, you can also find now, in addition, a number of cases from outside of Europe, as Naturvation also had some cases outside of Europe, and we opened the door to cases globally. So I think that I hope that kind of whetted your appetite. I just put very quickly on screen the opening page of the Atlas that you can navigate to from the main page of Naturvation, and hopefully you can see the Atlas on your screen. And I won't do a demo, obviously, but there is the Atlas, and there is the page where you can navigate it. Of course, there are many sustainability challenges that the Atlas can address, so you can select cases that address those challenges. You can also filter these cases based on the urban setting, project cost. There is a more detailed search function. Okay, so maybe another word. Well, there's a lot of information about these cases in the online version of the Atlas. We have an even more detailed version that is available in an Excel form, and we make that available to research teams who want to use the results of this work in their studies. And so far, we had about 10 publications that already mentioned the atlas. Dora. You are mute. Unmute.
Sorry. Thanks, Laszlo, for this introduction. It was great. I just want to add that that the data that we have collected in the atlas was actually based on a very thorough desk research. So we didn't do interviews. We went to the internet. We find different online sources, and we collected information based on those. But what makes it very valuable, I think, that all these sources are referenced. So all this information that we have in the atlas are referenced. So if somebody wants to research further these cases, it is possible to go and look for the original sources and learn even more about these cases. So this is just a starting point. And it allows people to explore further the nature-based solutions that are presented in the atlas. Okay, so Kes, I think I also would like to ask you to talk a little bit about the MOOC now. I know that it has been quite popular with students, so.
Yeah, thanks, Dora. Another kind of major output from the Naturvation project is our Urban Nature MOOC, or Massive Open Online Course, which is a free online course for everyone everywhere in the world. And I think that projects like Naturvation, which conduct huge amounts of research and engage in many kinds of innovation activities, one of the challenges is actually to kind of share all of this knowledge and understanding and the kinds of outputs that come out of our project. And so this MOOC is a way to package together many of the outputs from the Naturvation project in a way that is accessible to people that want to learn about nature-based solutions in cities. So the MOOC is focused on the core themes of cities, nature, innovation and sustainability. And it brings together films, a diverse collection of films, all kinds of different types of films, not really so much lecture films, but more like interview films and case study films and so on that bring you very up and close to nature-based solutions. Podcasts as well. The world of podcasts is exploding, so you can also listen to nature and nature-based solutions. Of course, readings and a compendium, which kind of brings together various knowledge and understanding from the Naturvation project in a very compact compendium, so you can kind of get the key points very quickly. But an online course is much more than films and podcasts and reading. It's actually an online learning community. So you come into contact with hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of other people around the world who are also interested in learning about these topics. So in our MOOC, there are all these forums which are available where you can ask questions and explore these different topics together. So I think that's really important to say. The MOOC itself is 5 modules or 5 weeks, and the topics are the governance of nature-based solutions, assessment of nature-based solutions, how we value them, business models and business strategies, and then finally innovation pathways, how we kind of move from a niche with nature-based solutions to mainstreaming them. In such a course, what's also pretty fantastic is that you meet dozens of teachers. So perhaps if Laszlo and I were teaching in our courses in our physical classrooms, you might meet Laszlo or me and a couple of other teachers. But in these online courses, you'll meet very many people, and not just academics, but also people working in municipalities, people working in business, people working in public administrations and so on. So you get a pretty diverse set of perspectives on the topic of nature-based solutions. I can also say that the course utilises the Urban Nature Atlas. I mean, the Urban Nature Atlas is just a fantastic resource of like 1,000 examples of nature-based solutions. So we integrate the Urban Nature Atlas into the course so that students, when they're doing their assignments and so on, actually go in and check out the Urban Nature Atlas and use this as a resource. So it's a fantastic connection between 2 different tools from the Naturvation project.
Thanks, Kes. I think one of the major added value of both of these outputs is that they can really increase the knowledge base about or contribute to the knowledge base about nature-based solutions. And we just discussed this before the session, but both of these tools now, as they are fully online and can be used online, come very handy given the current situation. So I think both of these outputs are really useful now. And I was wondering whether we can talk a little bit about the future of this, because obviously the project is going to finish soon. But I think both of these outputs will continue to be out there. So maybe we can talk about this a little bit first. Kes, do you want to take this question first, and then I will move to Laszlo. So how you are envisaging to continue using the MOOC after the project, and what will happen with the MOOC?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's another good point, because there are many research and innovation projects that take place in Europe, and of course they have a start date and an end date, but it is very important that different outputs live on beyond these projects, and I think that the Atlas and the MOOC are really great examples of that. So the MOOC is also a living platform. In other words, so when we started it in January this year, over time we've been adding to it, adding podcasts, adding different readings, adding new films, and this will continue beyond the Naturvation project. So for many, many years to come, we'll continue to update and develop this online course, which is really fantastic. Also, as I kind of said already, I mean, it's a living community, a living learning community. So there are new people going into it all the time that are making their own additions by adding questions and starting discussions and so on in the forum. So it's very much alive, which is fantastic. One of the things we're also kind of doing with the Urban Nature MOOC, and which we'll hope to do beyond the Naturvation project continue, is actually translating much of it into other languages. So it's all in English at the moment, and now we have a compendium which is in English, and we've just translated that compendium into French and Spanish, which is fantastic, and we'll get subtitles on the films in French and Spanish, and then we're going to continue with other languages, because we really feel that we want to kind of open it up to different parts of the world and for different people to be able to access it. So the future for the MOOC, I think, is bright and lively going forwards.
Wow, that sounds very nice. I think we also have some similar ideas with the UNA, the Atlas, that we will try to, one of the directions that we are thinking to develop it further is to expand it globally and also present the cases that we have globally and maybe open it to other projects which can maybe share their cases there, so that to really increase the number there and obviously to keep it up to date. Laszlo, would you like to say a few words about what we are planning with the Atlas in the once the project ends or in the coming months? Or
Sure. Well, some of the things that we are planning with the Atlas is to keep doing what we are already doing, yeah. which is making the information available to research teams. I actually expect this interest to go up, as I think globally we see an interest, a growing interest, and maybe that's also linked to the pandemic and people being logged in and focused more on their local environments. They are asking questions about how do we access nature where we live under these conditions. So I suspect this interest will go up. We had about 40,000 visitors to the Atlas since March 2018, and already partnered with about 30 projects. We are counting on that number to go up. Of course, also working in our own sort of Naturvation ecosystem with the MOOC and the other outputs and the other teams, but also external. Now, with respect to the data itself, as you already alluded to this, and I mentioned that we are expanding the data to cases outside of Europe. At the moment, it's not a hugely massive level, but we do have cases that we mapped from China to Canada to Brazil and so on, and they will appear shortly in an updated version. We are also taking, since we mapped these 1,000 cases already about 2 years ago. We thought it was time to do an update. So using the same rigorous methods, we are doing an update of essentially all cases. So this will end, and the new data will be ready within about 2 months or so. And then as Naturvation is coming to a close next spring, we are also planning to find a new and permanent home for the Atlas where we can keep it for the future, and also with the intention to make this a living database as much as possible.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say that for this update, we are not only updating the data that is already in the Atlas, but during this 4 year while we were developing and working on the project, we after we made the atlas and we collected the first round of questions, new questions emerged. So, for example, there was a lot of questions directed to us about the social justice and the social equity aspects of nature-based solutions, how people can access, how does it differ in different cities, or about the impacts, the actual impacts, what were their impacts, how they were quantified. We also tried to study this in the first round of the atlas, but it was very difficult to collect data, but now we have more knowledge, we have more information, so we can ask more precise questions. In addition, we are also collecting questions how the COVID-19 situation impacted the nature-based solutions. We really want to understand what was the impact of this new situation, new development on the different type of nature-based solutions. So we are also trying to address these new emerging research needs, and we hope that we will be able to carry out research with this new information. Okay, actually, I wanted to ask one last question from you, and this is if you could summarize in three main points, what were the takeaways for you from the work you have done on the Atlas development and the MOOC development? What are those lessons or key research findings, or even just takeaways that you learned during the process of developing and using these outputs? So I don't know which one of you would like to start, but
why don't you start with one, Kes, and then
okay.
I'll add one, and we can.
Oh yeah, we can go back and forth. Sounds like a good idea.
Back and forth.
I mean, I think one immediate lesson learned from the massive open online course is in fact the huge interest around the world in cities and nature. I mean, just after we've launched this course in January this year, and so far we've had about 30,000 unique visitors to the course, and just over 8,000 people enrolled, and about 12,000 downloads of our compendium. And what you see in the discussions and the forums taking place on the MOOC is that there's interest from far and wide. I mean, it's from everywhere. I mean, it's not concentrated in different parts of the world. It really is people checking in from all different parts of the world, talking about cities, urban development, nature, and sustainability. So I suppose it's not something new, perhaps, but it's just a reminder of how much interest there is to learn and think about how we should be developing our cities going forward into the future.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So my first thought is that it's perhaps along similar lines that what you mentioned. And the way I put this is that I think that the idea of nature-based solutions is contagious. And what I noticed, and I know that many others involved in the project, I think noticed in the early stages of this work that they're starting to deal with this topic changes your vision. It's as if you're putting on a different pair of glasses, that suddenly you start seeing opportunities. You look at both sort of the appearance of nature in communities and cities through a different lens, and where they do not appear, you're starting asking questions. Why isn't it there? It would make so much sense. So it does change your vision, and I think it does change your mindset, because you're also recognizing, in a way, the many systemic relationships between the appearance of nature and green infrastructure and cities, and the link to human well-being. And now, again, as mentioned, with all these issues with COVID, where people are locked into their place of living and don't necessarily get out as much, I think these questions come up for many people in very practical and day-to-day context.
Yeah, I also just want to add to this that one of the main takeaways, or let's say lessons learned from the process of developing the Urban Nature Atlas for me, was that originally when we started to work with nature-based solutions, and previously I worked with green infrastructure solutions, for me the first thing that I was looking at the environmental impacts, but they really have a huge and very important impact and benefit for people who are living in the cities. And in many cases, these benefits may be even more bigger and more important and more striking for people to understand they can really help improving their health. They can help in recreation. They can help them get out of, just to have some fun with friends and interact with the other people. So they have a lot of different impacts on society and even economic development. So for me, this is something that I think our work could really nicely showcase. Okay, maybe a second finding or takeaway, Kes or Laszlo?
No, absolutely. I can jump in again. I mean, I think contagious, that's a dangerous word to use nowadays when pandemics, but absolutely it is a contagious concept in the sense that people have really grabbed hold of it. And I think another lesson or learning that comes out from the MOOC, and I think it's the same with the Atlas, is that in example after example of nature-based solutions, what we see is actors and organisations connecting dots and finding synergies between different activities. It's very difficult to work with nature-based solutions if you're going to remain in a small box or with only one perspective and so on. So, for example, in municipalities, you see them connecting their parks and gardens department closer with their social well-being work, closer with their financial development, and they're thinking about space and how they relate to space in cities. You also see kind of this connecting the dots with interesting collaborations between different actors. So sometimes very unusual collaborations happening in cities which we may not have seen before, but which are now working with nature and cities in new ways. And you see organisations that thought they never had anything to do with nature, but in fact they're property owners. So of course they've got rooftops and facades, and their buildings fit into cities, and they're having to think about how they relate to nature in new ways in the city. So I think this idea of connecting the dots and synergies comes through very strongly in the MOOC, and I think it also does in the Urban Nature Atlas.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Okay, my second point is related to what enables the more widespread use and implementation of NBS. I mean, one thing goes back to the first point. Of course, we have to have the right mindset, and we have to recognize the value and the opportunities. But perhaps in a more practical sense, what it also needs is investment. And investment is one of the many attributes we looked at in the 1,000 cases. How are NBS funded? And of course, they are funded in many different ways, by governments, by the private sector, by civil society groups, by sort of a hybrid of those organizations. But the particular reason I thought I would bring this up is because of the special need and special opportunity that exists now because of the new Green Deal type initiatives. As countries are investing huge amounts of money to kind of save fledgling economies and deal with the aftermath of COVID. It will be critically important that those investments, and I think it's realized that those investments are not just propping up old and inefficient structures, but they finance solutions that are actually not creating negative side effects, that are regenerative, that are solving problems. And I think NBS and green infrastructure more broadly, they really fit that pattern. So of course, this is recognized. This is kind of at the heart of the new Green Deal. I'm just making the point that NBS as a specific category is really a perfect fit for that, both from the business perspective, but also from the perspective of social needs and broader and longer term social and ecosystem benefits.
Yeah. Okay. And I just also wanted to add, related to this point, is that I think that it's very important to find ways to upscale these initiatives and make them an enabler of a systemic change in cities. So in some European cities, if you walk, you feel that they are trying to implement urban nature in everywhere, but this is more like a good example, and in many cities there is still a lot to do. But I think what we are hoping for is that urban nature becomes the norm, the everyday reality, that everywhere we go we are surrounded by nature in the city, within the city, so you don't have to get out of the city to get to the nature. Okay, so I think this was our third point. Oh, that as a third takeaway? Second only. Okay, so then we need the third one from you both, Kes and Laszlo. Kes, would you like to go first?
There's so many takeaways, but I'll take kind of a more personal one, an example. One of our films from in the MOOC from the city of Melbourne, the speaker makes quite a strong statement. He says that the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The second best time to plant a tree is today. And I think what this speaker is saying is that we should have been working on these topics for a long time, and perhaps we haven't, but that, we can still act right now, and that's really important. And that, getting trees and vegetation and greening into cities today is just as important as perhaps it was 20 years ago. So it's a real call out for action, and I think that you feel that in all the examples that come through in our MOOC of cities and organisations moving quickly to respond to climate change and biodiversity loss and these big issues that we face.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, and my third point is related to the question of impacts. We know in a general sense that in most cases nature-based solutions have positive impacts on mindsets and well-being and so on, and ecosystem conditions. But actually, in order to make the point in a more specific way and in a way that people who are involved in technical planning, who are making decisions about investment, so it's not enough to just say, well, believe me, this will be good for you. We have to have better numbers, and we have to have actually better demonstrable evidence that NBS really have these impacts. And sometimes the impacts can also be negative. I mean, we also have to be honest about that, but overwhelmingly the impacts are positive. So that will require more effort and investment in the science, in the monitoring network, in making sure there is better data, better credibility. And I think that will sort of underpin this general trend I think that we're talking about.
Thanks, Laszlo. Thanks, Laszlo and Kes. I think these were great points of takeaway. We have a few questions in the chat, so I thought that I would just pick a few. And there is one question from Bjorn, and he's asking whether citizen organization who wants to share their cases and wants to be part of the Atlas, how can they do that? Is the Atlas open for that? And and are they welcoming citizen organizations?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I mean, maybe I can answer that. I mean, that's something we've been discussing for a number of times, whether to open up the Atlas for submitting data by third parties. We haven't done that so far. I'm aware that the interest is there. The reason we haven't done that so far is because as Dora also mentioned, we put quite a significant emphasis on quality control of data and keeping the methodology fairly consistent. But it's good to hear that there is an interest like that. At the moment, what we can do, of course, if someone wants to have their case represented, we would be glad to hear from you, and maybe we can open up an entry and work with you and put up your information.
Yeah. And I think, Laszlo, there is a second question for you. It's about the project impact monitoring. And the question is from Zeshan, and he's asking how well you found that projects are measuring their impacts in empirical terms. I think this is something that also came up during the course of the Urban Nature Navigator development. So
I'm sorry, how
well projects are measuring their own impact in empirical terms?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, it depends on the project. So, but I would say the more typical is that impact monitoring is a bit ad hoc, and it's not, in order to have a good sense of impact, you have to have a proper monitoring system that covers a range of issues over time using consistent monitoring methods. That's fairly rare. So that was one of my points, that this, if the business case for NBS is to be really strong, there has to be better evidence. That does require, attention to monitoring systems and whatever capacity it requires.
Yeah, I think hopefully with such outputs as the Urban Nature Atlas and the MOOC that are really developing the knowledge base and really spreading the information about nature-based solutions further, this in the coming years will also develop, and there will be a better system and better capacities to measure impacts. I think our time is up because we just had 30 minutes for this session, but it was a very nice discussion, Laszlo and Kes. Thank you for joining the Meet the Expert session.
Thank you so much. And I think for all those people who've got questions out there, it's very easy to check out the Atlas on the Naturvation website and to check out the MOOC, and you can find email addresses and so on to follow up. So no problems with further questions coming in. Thanks a lot, Dora. Great work on moderating.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot. And thanks for the questions. Take care.
See you later.
Bye.